Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a die-hard Piston fan since the days of Babe Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. Well, thank you for listening. Please subscribe and like. In today's episode, we are going to talk about what is going on with Monty. I've been waiting all week again. I thought for sure by tonight we would have word whether he was in or out. And we're also going to talk about the draft, which is only 2 weeks away, man. It's coming fast. And then we're going to talk a little bit about free agency and a little bit about my hero, Jerry West. So before I get started, I want to shout out to Brendan, my cousin's son. He's a professor and department head at Wichita State, and likes to listen to the podcast, and I really appreciate that, Brendan. Also, Monday night, I am honored to be invited by Lance Caparosi to be on his podcast, Piston Podcast, 3 Championship Drive. So we're recording it Monday at 10 o'clock, so I don't know what time it's going to be on, if it's probably going to be on Tuesday. So watch out for that. And let's get started. So Monty Williams, what is going on? Nobody knows, and I haven't heard any rumors, except, we have heard the one about Monty to the Lakers, which just seems like a joke to me. Why would the Lakers hire Monty? I mean, I guess in the past they had been rumored that he had been linked to them, but after the year he had with the Pistons, and we're paying him way more than the Lakers would pay him. The Lakers, tried to sign Dan Hurley, and they offered him less money than what we're paying Monty. So why would Monty quit working? If we fired him, why would he take a job with them? And I just think, he's my take is he's just going to want to not coach for a while. He's going to get paid so much money, and nobody's, if he gets paid the same amount of money, then the Pistons don't have to pay him. But I don't just think that's going to happen. I did make a joke that I would offer the Lakers our 5th pick in the draft this year if they would take him, but that's not happening. So anyway, also there was discussion. Would be curious to see how Trajan Langdon, if he did approach Cade, and I don't think players should be included. I know Monty had a good relationship with Cade, and he really fostered it, I guess, and he knew that Cade's the man in Detroit, and so I think he kept him close, but I think he really did like Cade a lot, and I think Cade admired Monty and appreciated him too. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that I don't know if they would ask his opinion or not ask his opinion, but I don't think that they would certainly go by what he says or what, if he wanted him or not. So, but we just don't know why it's taken so long. So again, the draft is 2 weeks away, and I will tell you in my guesstimation, and I'm not a draft expert. I've had really good luck with my predictions about who, has been the best prospects, and especially for the Pistons. But Donovan Clingan, and he is, I think, a key player in this upcoming draft. And he could go. I honestly think that he will be picked in the top 3, for sure, by the top 4. So there was a time not very long ago that I thought that he would be available at 5, and my thought was, we could keep him, but also there's going to be teams wanting to trade for him. So everybody says this draft isn't good, but he is the most sure thing. He is, we know that he's going to give a team rim protection and rebounding, and he can pass, and he's a really good, solid player, and he's huge. He's massive, and he's fairly athletic, and so I think that a lot of teams are going to want him and value him, and so I think there's going to be a good price where, that's what trading in the draft is about. The trick is, they can't make the trade in most cases. They won't make the trade until draft night, especially with the 5th pick, they will want to see if their guy's available at the 5th pick. And it's always a Russian roulette. Well, how far do I need to trade up in order to get the guy I really want? And if there's a guy, there's not a ton of guys that people probably really want, but Clingan is probably one of those. So there's teams, like Oklahoma City, they need a big guy, and he would be, I think, a really good fit there. And Chet could play the 4, and they just need some size and some rebounding. And he's got, well, him and Chet would have a block party. They would have such good rim protection. But it came out just recently. So Richacher could not go to the combine. So they did one in Italy just recently, just yesterday or something, and he measured at 6'8.5" without shoes. So that means he's close to 6'10", because so he's almost 6'9", and then you put on shoes, and then he's 6'10". So um, his wingspan is short. So his wingspan is only 6'9.5". So he's only 1 inch plus. They call it, if your wingspan usually for the average person is basically what your height is, and that's just, again, it can be lower or more, but most basketball players have plus wingspan, which means their wingspan is a lot longer than what they are, their height. So Cade, for example, Cade is 6'6", and his wingspan is 7 foot. So Cade is plus 6 inches. His wingspan is, and so that's a lot. That's an advantage, and that's one of the things that helps Cade. So just we're gonna really quick talk about Cade's contract. I mean, teams can start. I don't think they can extend people yet, but I think that they are going to extend Cade for the full max extension, and he is well worth it. To be honest, I was worried going into this season. What will we do? Because you don't want to offend him. You want to keep him positive and locked into the franchise and make him feel wanted and needed, and so he started out the year, maybe, I don't know if it was the first month or the first 10 games or how many, he did not play great. And he did not play like a rookie max extension. I still thought we would want to, but it really made me question. And then the way he played the rest of the season, in my guesstimation, he is without a doubt deserving of that. And the cool thing about it is I love watching him play, and we have him. His 5-year extension doesn't kick in until after next season. So we will have him locked up for 6 years. And that is a great thing to get to watch Cade Cunningham play for 6 years for me. And maybe you don't feel that way. Another thing that really bugs me, and I don't want to offend any of you guys, but here's the thing. We know that the Spurs were doing terrible. They were down there right almost with the Pistons until like about the last 10 games. They started doing better. But nobody says Victor can't win. Nobody questions that he's not going to be one of the greatest players ever. And his team's not very good. Nobody questions Pop, that Pop's one of the greatest coaches ever. And he is. He has been. I'm not sure if he was this past year or the year before that. But it's just interesting that nobody questions him. Nobody cuts him down for the bad record his team has. And of course, I would take him in a heartbeat. I would take him over Cade. He is going to be one of the greatest ever if he stays healthy. But it's just as comical to me. Why does he get a pass? Why, and again, people, they would never question Paolo Banchero getting the rookie max extension. And he's not eligible until next summer. Cade's eligible this summer, but his numbers are the same as Cade, but he plays on a winning team, and so everybody values that. Except not when it comes to Victor. Victor's team lost like crazy. Even Victor, his team won some games when he didn't play, and they were until they won a bunch right at the last few weeks of the season. They won some games, but in some of those games Victor didn't play. So anyway, just interesting how that goes. But anyway, Richacher is the guy that I've been targeting since like January, that I said that's who I would take if I were the Pistons. I still would take him, but he's not the greatest athlete. His vertical was only like 32 inches, which isn't crazy, but we need guys that can shoot. And it is a challenge with this draft. The toughest thing is there aren't hardly any shooters. There's Shepard and there's Dalton Knecht, and the rest of them are pretty inconsistent shooters. And I've always insisted that what we need is a wing, that all of our assets and all of our everything that we have should be going towards getting wings that can shoot and play defense. And luckily we got Fontecchio, so that was a huge get for us. And I still think we don't appreciate that or still consider that going into the season. He didn't play that many games with him, but when he did, we were so much more in the plus. Every lineup was better with Fontecchio in the game. But anyway, so people think that Sarr and Richacher are going to be gone, and I think maybe Clingan, and then a lot of mocks have Shepard going up really high. And Piston fans, he is a favorite. When I listen to every Piston podcast I can, and I listen to all the comments, and I follow things on Twitter, and I know people are really high on Shepard, and I love the way he plays. I loved watching him in college, and he is an amazing shooter, amazing, not just a good shooter. He's shooting tough threes. Again, there's a big difference. That's what same with Connect and Shepard. They knocked the threes down, and people were going after them. People knew that they were great three-point shooters, and they were defending the crap out of them, and they still could hit contested ones. So not like we have Asar and Stu who are all alone, and they don't even want to shoot the three, and so there's a difference between shooters and people that are left alone. So, but I thought there's a comparison. Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard is 6'1", just like Reed Shepard. And Peyton Pritchard, if you're watching the NBA Finals, he's played really well for the Celtics, and he's tough, man, and he's a dog. And Shepard, I think Shepard probably is going to be better than him. And Shepard, the way Shepard blocked shots and got steals in college, and everybody thinks he kind of cheated on his vertical jump, that he minimized his reach before he jumped. And anyway, but he still can jump, and he still can block. He blocked an incredible number of shots for a little guard. He blocked jump shooters' shots. But Shepard averaged 9.6 points, 47% and 39% on threes. But he's just a part-time player because he's so short, and teams could target him if he was on the court for a longer time. But he was good with the Celtics this year, and he's been tough and a difference maker in the playoffs. When he was at Oregon, he averaged 20 points a game and shot 42% on threes, which, yeah, and he was a 4-year college player, but he was crazy good. And it's just hard for, again, I mentioned in the last podcast, how many 6'1" guys are effective players in the league. It is very minimal number, and maybe Shepard will be an exception. And I'm sure he's going to be a solid role player at least in the NBA, and it remains to be seen, but I know a lot of Piston fans want him. A lot of people think he will be gone by 5, our pick. So, like I said, Clingan is somebody that we would want to keep, or somebody, I guess we would almost have to trade Duren at some point. Because here's the other conundrum with the Pistons. Stu is, I think everybody agrees, is a backup 5, and his shot really improved, but do you have Clingan, Stu, and Duren all to play the 5? That's not a good use of your money. So and it's going to be interesting. But then there's Matas Bazilis, that teams, there's several people who mock him. A lot of people have mocked him to Detroit, and his shot is questionable. He played in the G League Ignite. All the Ignite players shot terribly from the 3, including Ron Holland, and their team was a disaster. They shut down the Ignite team. The NBA is no longer going to have it because it was so poorly run, and everybody makes the excuse of no point guard. But I don't know. I think he had one great year of shooting the 3 in high school, which is not from the 3-point line. He is great at blocking shots, so he is an option for us there. Ron Holland is lots of potential. It's scary. So when Jaylen Brown came out of college at California, he was terrible at handling the ball. Ron Holland is better at handling the ball at this point than Jaylen Brown was. I think everybody would agree to that. And neither one of them could shoot very well. And look what Jaylen Brown is now. He's going to be MVP of the NBA Finals, and he is unbelievable. And it's really hard to gauge and figure out and calculate who is going to be better. So it's going to be, I would love, there's rumors about who's going to work out for who. And so I just heard that Salaun is going to work out for the Pistons. I would love to see the Pistons. I would love to know everybody that came in for the workouts for the Pistons. And I'd love to see Salaun, Buzelis, and Cody Williams and Holland all at a workout together and see them go after each other. That would be really cool to see that happen. But I wish if any of you listeners have insight or some information about who exactly all the Pistons had in for workouts, please put it in the comments, because I'm just fascinated to see who it was. I'd be even more fascinated if I could sneak into the facility and watch them go at each other. It cracks me up a little bit. So all these people I listen to their podcasts. I'm not dissing you or anything, but they say, I hear everybody kind of regurgitates the same stuff quite often. And how many times have I heard Trajan Langdon? Oh, we know who he tries to draft. He tries to draft guys just like Trey Murphy III, who I've said countless times is one of my favorite players in the league. I would kill to have him, and there's no way in a million years they're going to give him up. But they got him with like the 17th pick. Herb Jones, who is a wing, one of the best defenders in the NBA, and um, his three-point shooting has drastically improved. I am confident that Trajan Langdon is going to make it so we have better development of our players in the area of shooting and other areas. But I really am confident that he will find the right person or really help us develop those shooters. But here's the thing is, everybody throws out those two examples, Murphy and Jones. And that's two guys, of course, they did draft them. The Pelicans drafted them, and Trajan was part of that process for sure. But that doesn't mean that, that's what he's just going to look for those guys, or he's going to be able to find, one of those guys, because we don't know. Buzelis could end up being crazy good. Ron Holland has tons of upside, and he plays his butt off on defense. And I've never been that high on him. And Dalton Connect, he's another one that Piston fans are interested, including myself. Here's the other thing that I said, but the recent rumor, there's Yahoo. I think I mentioned in the last podcast that Yahoo has Salaun rumored to go to or in a mock draft they had the Pistons picking him at number 5. People are saying that he's now like no worse than number 8, that he's not going to fall further than 8. He was like not even weeks, 3 or 4 weeks ago, he was like 17 or 20 something on draft boards, and he's just skyrocketing even as we speak. He's played longer during his French league team has been playing even not too long ago. So it's really interesting, and we're not at the place where we need to get another prospect that needs time, because we've had part of the reason why we struggle is because we've had too many young players. But I just do really think with Grimes and Fontecchio. So the truth is, Stu's a veteran. Stu's not a young player anymore, and this is going to be Cade's not going to be just no young player anymore. So I think that we're going to have some more stability just because those guys have been in the league longer. But I think that I would if I knew I could trade back and get Salaun, I would take him. This is not a great draft that you can be sure of. I'm really confident that Buzelis or Holland or Connect or Salaun or one of those guys is going to end up being really good. But which one? It's just that Salaun is taller. He's real active. He's a freak athlete. He plays really hard. Looks like he has great potential on defense, and he has shown signs of shooting the 3 good, and he's been one of the better players in our leagues, especially at the end of the year. The other thing I want to talk about is, a lot of times I repeat myself from episode to episode, but it is a true thing. So the next person we're going to talk about, the latest rumor, is Cody Williams to Detroit. And back in January, Cody Williams, I had him number 2. I had Richacher on my Piston board, number 1, and Cody Williams, number 2. And other people, there were a lot of people in the draft community that had him really high. They had him number 1. I saw people that I respect had him at number 1. And then he got injured multiple times. He had an ankle injury, I think, and then he got hit in the face, and he missed some time. And I know I've mentioned before that he played with 2 guys who are NBA talents that are going to go in the first round, and they didn't necessarily share him the ball. He didn't necessarily touch the ball. He wasn't very aggressive. I don't know if part of that was due to his injuries and things. He's wearing a mask and stuff, but I don't know. It's just interesting that people said that he is climbing up the draft boards, and it's funny, he hasn't played in so long, but I listened to a great interview with him, and man, he can answer the questions. But the thing that I pointed this out before, Jaden Ivey, if he was based on his freshman year, he never would have been picked. He would have been picked in the 20s, or who knows where he would have been picked. Same thing with other guys in that same draft, that they would have been picked much later. And it's just a lot of guys develop a lot from their first year out of high school to their next year, and so there's a good chance Cody Williams could improve. His brother, I think, played 3 years in college, and look what he's become. He's again, I would kill to have him. And I'm not saying him and Cody are a little bit different body types and a little bit different players, and but he has a chance to take some huge strides and to get way better. So who knows? That is the challenge, and that is what Trajan Langdon's getting paid for. And he has helped pick out guys like Trey Murphy late in the draft and Herb Jones. And so we'll see what happens in the draft. It's 2 weeks away. I guess I'm going crazy in anticipation, and like I said, I think we could get it if Clingan falls to 5. I think we get some really good stuff for him. Even some future first round picks. We're in deficit. We still owe that one pick to the Knicks, and you need first round capital either to draft players, but also to make trades. Talk about free agency. So here's the thing about free agency. I'm not sure if everybody's aware of the new collective bargaining agreement. They can start negotiating with their free agents the second the finals get over. So Friday night, if the Boston Celtics complete the sweep of the Mavericks, then they will be able to teams will be able to sign their own, not other teams' free agents, but they'll be able to sign their own. Well, that's going to give us a big head start in knowing who we can pursue. If they've signed before the free agency period, June 30th, then we can't go after them. So I am, and then there is the fact that we can give people a lot of money. We can overpay for guys, especially on we can really overpay guys for 2 years. And a lot of these guys, there's some guys that aren't getting paid that much, and we could outspend the other teams. A great example is Isaiah Hartenstein. He was awesome with the Knicks this year, and he would be awesome on any team. But the Knicks can only pay him $17 million because they just have his early bird rights because they only signed him to a 2-year contract. I don't know if you want me to get into all that, but he's 26 years old, so he is right in his prime. So if we could sign him for a 3-year contract, but here's the catch. Here's the thing that Piston fans need to realize is we are not the destination for free agents. Sure, there's a bunch of guys I think we can get and overpay and outbid other people, but guys like Hartenstein, the OKC, they need a center, and they have $30 million. We have $65 million, but they have $30 million, so they can pay him, way more than the Knicks and offer him, a chance to be on. They were the number 1 seed in the West, so he could go there. I know he loves, the reports are that he loves playing for the Knicks and he fits their system, and the Knicks fans love him, and Coach Tibbs loves him, but, they can only pay him $17 million. And, if he could get, $5 million more or whatever a year from another team, what would you do? He hasn't been paid that much up until this point. So a lot of these guys haven't been. And same thing with Malik Monk. So, not to pat myself on the shoulder, but when he left the Lakers 3 years ago, he was like 24 years old, and he shot 40% on threes for the Lakers and started some games and played a lot. And I told my friend Noah, I said, no, and he was the only guy that year. I said that's who we need to sign. We need to sign him. So instead, the Kings signed him for $9 million a year. They got him for 2 years for $9 million a year, and obviously he was amazing. And the truth is, this year he hasn't been that great, but he still would be a terrific player for any team. And that's why I don't know why we think and the Kings can't pay him. They can't pay him. They can't even pay him $17 million like Hartenstein can get. So everybody's pretty much knows that he will be, even though he might like it there, he is going to probably go somewhere else. But Orlando, they made it to the playoffs. I don't know if they were 4 seed or what they were, but they need a guard, and he can shoot. He's down to about like 35% this year, but he's electric. He's 6'3", and they're loaded with players. But it's not that easy just to get him. Could he be a Piston? Yes, he could. But again, we have Grimes and Ivy and Cade, and so we have some guards. So, but I wouldn't be opposed to us getting him, but we'll see what happens. And again, it's going to be fascinating to see who gets traded. And again, a lot of people say trade Ivy, trade Duran, and again, I'm not opposed to that, but what are you going to get for them? Who wants them? And I'm not giving them away for nothing. I'm not demanding the king's ransom for them, but you have to have somebody else in place. And so, like when people talk about Gary Harris for the Pistons, I know James Edwards III had an article about Malik Monk and Gary Harris, but it's interesting. Malik Monk, Gary Harris, and Nick Claxton. So we have centers and we have guards, and so that doesn't seem like it should be necessarily the priority for us. But Gary Harris, I loved Gary Harris when he was at Michigan State. He was phenomenal, and he was great when he played for the Nuggets. And then he's been injured quite a bit when since he's played for the Magic. And I think we could get him fairly cheap, but we have Grimes, and so Grimes' situation is he is a free agent at the end of this coming year. And so we can extend him right now, but again, it doesn't make any sense for us to extend him, and it doesn't make any sense for him to sign an extension because he hasn't proven to us. He played shot terrible for us in the few games. He only played like 6 games or something for us, but we get a whole year to see him, and I loved him. His second year with the Knicks, he was 40% three-point shooter and a dog on defense. And I mean, he is just who I want us to get. And but he shot poorly last year. So we'll see what happens with him. But we can match any offer. He'll be at the end of this coming season. He will be a restricted free agent. So we can match anybody. And if we fall in love with him and think he's great, then we can keep him. But we want guys that can shoot threes. And he is, there's some guys like Fontecchio is a good defender, but Grimes is a great defender. So that and Gary Harris has been above average. I don't know with all the injuries he's had how good of a defender he is now, but I just think that he's not necessarily a guy that we would want. So again, I'm going to keep repeating it. Maybe I'll talk about him every issue. Najee Marshall, he's a tough defender and he's an energy player and he's 6'7", and he shot 39% on threes, and he wasn't that great a three-point shooter. Again, the Pelicans have had guys, multiple guys that have really improved their shot. They have another guy that they just drafted a couple years ago that's shooting much better. But I talked about earlier about Herb Jones, how much his three-point shooting has improved, and again, so is Najee Marshall's, and Trajan's got all the inside scoop on him. Nobody knows him. Nobody around the league on any other team will know him. And the Pelicans, they have all these guys that are making lots of money, so they cannot afford to just pay him. We would be able to outpay anybody, spend anybody for him. I never hear any rumors about Jalen Smith, and he hardly got to play for the Pacers in the playoffs. He didn't hardly get off the bench except maybe in garbage time, and he is 6'10" and shot 42% on threes, and he's not always been necessarily a great three-point shooter, but we can use a backup that can shoot the three, and we can overpay him. So that's a guy, I mentioned before. I mentioned before Taurean Prince. He plays for the Lakers. They can't, they're really limited fund-wise, but so you can't have, so we found out that you need to have a really good bench in the NBA because we can complain about injuries. Guys are always getting hurt. Guys on every team are getting hurt. So you need good backups on your bench. And I think Taurean Prince would be great. He's a veteran. He knows how to play, and he can shoot the three, and he can play defense. And so I think, and he's not gotten paid very much, but I still think the Lakers aren't going to be able to keep paying him. So I would like to see us, take a shot at him and bring him in because you can't have, if you have Asar's playing a lot and Fontecchio's playing a lot, at the 3-4, then you can't just keep on bringing, you need to have backups, but you can't we're going to get 5 guards that are all really good that we're paying a lot that are starting caliber because then you have a problem. So I don't know. I just think that we need to be patient. But anyway, Jerry West was my hero, and Jerry West, I grew up when I was, back in 1967, I started watching, and they didn't play games on. I hardly, I like Dave Bing, but I never got to see him play. I got to see Jerry West play in the playoffs every year, especially in the finals against the Celtics, and had a lot of disappointment. But Jerry West was unbelievable. He was unbelievable in college. He's called Mr. Clutch because his clutch shooting in the end of games was out of this world. He averaged like 38 in the finals. He was the only player in NBA history to win the MVP for the losing team. And all those Celtics players admired him so much. And most of you probably know that the logo, the NBA logo, that is a silhouette of my hero, Jerry West. In high school, what number was I? I was number 44. And it was because of Jerry West. Also, yeah, Pistol Pete. So those were two, by far, my favorite players as a young kid growing up that I just admired and loved and tried to emulate their game. And I couldn't do it, but I could do some of the stuff with Pistol Pete. I'd come down in games and throw behind the back passes and things and go between my legs and behind my back in the 60s when players weren't doing that. But anyway, I loved Jerry West, and he had a tough childhood. His dad was real abusive to him and mean, and his brother, who he admired and loved, got killed in Vietnam, and that was really devastating for Jerry. But he was not just one of the greatest players. 14 years in the NBA, 14 years as an All-Star, 12 years as All-NBA. I'm not sure if they had All-NBA every year, so he might have been All-NBA every year. He was an unbelievable executive. He formed the team, the Magic team with the Lakers team that won the championships with Kareem and those guys. He was the one that organized and made those teams and brought in those players. And then later with the Kobe teams, he got Shaq to come there and traded for Paul Gasol and drafted Kobe, traded Vlade Divac to Charlotte to get the draft pick that he was able to get Kobe because he knew Kobe was going to be great. But anyway, Jerry West, I hope that and then he was real integral in helping the Warriors. He was an important consultant for the Warriors when they had those championship teams. So he helped the Grizzlies when Marc Gasol played there, and they had the guy from Michigan State that's left-handed. I can't think of him right now, but they had some really good teams for the Grizzlies. They didn't quite make it over the hump, but he was a consultant there. But now I think at the end of his life, he was still working, I think, for the Clippers maybe. But rest in peace, Jerry West. You're my hero. Thank you for listening. Be the reason that somebody feels cared for. Make sure you look for the newest podcast that's going to come out on 3 Championship Drive with Lance Caparosi. And go Pistons.